Hi, I'm Tom Miggott from Tom Miggott Photography. Before we dive into this topic, I just want to inform those of you guys who've discovered this video directly from YouTube that you can find all the episodes that I've ever published directly on my website, tommiggottphotography.com, in the blog section, where I've always created an article giving you more insight, more detail on the topic that I cover in each video. So, and all that since 2012. So there's a lot of content accessible for free directly from the blog inside tommiggottphotography.com. So today's topic is DNG. Many of you guys have asked me to cover this. There's a lot to talk about, so please bear with me. That's going to last about, I'm going to try to go as fast as possible, but it's going to take about 20 minutes or half an hour to go through all this, because I really want to give you all the details. I found online videos and website, they give you a subset, but they don't give you the entire picture, and this is what I want to do today. So I'm going to explain you what DNG is, what it's for, why it was created, and give you the pros and the cons of DNG. So DNG, what is it? Well, it stands for Digital Negative, and it's actually a RAW format that was created by Adobe in 2004. It's based on the TIFF format that was also created by Adobe earlier, though, in 2001. Adobe does not build cameras, so why did Adobe create a RAW format? Does it make sense? Yes, it does. And the very reason is that you don't have a standard for RAW format in the industry. You basically have a RAW format per camera manufacturer. So if you're Canon, it's CR2, if you're Nikon, it's NEF, if you're Pentax, it's PEF. But there's no similarities across these RAW formats, and that makes it more complicated for the software editors, because they have to cope with every new camera model that have these little changes inside them for the RAW format, and so all this software have to adapt and release new updates, and that costs time and effort. And so it would be easier if there was one single format for all cameras and software. That led Adobe to create this RAW format. Its specification is publicly available. You can find all the details on an Adobe page here. You can find the specs and all the details. And you can, if you're a developer, you can create a program and that works around the DNG, and it's absolutely royalty free. So there's no problem there. Another thing as well is that it is growing and growing and growing. There's more and more folks out there from the industry that are actually relying on the DNG, not only on the software side, but also on the camera side, because you have brands like Leica, Hasselblad, Pentax even, Samsung, Ricoh, that produce cameras that actually generate DNG natively instead of having their own RAW format. So if your camera does not generate DNG, why should you care about DNG? Well, we're going to see the pros later on in these videos, but it's also because you can convert your native RAW file into DNG, and you have several ways of doing it. You can do it using the Adobe DNG Converter. It's a free tool that you can find on Adobe website. It's here. It works both on Mac and PC. And it looks like this. Basically, it's simple. Is you select the folder with your images, you select the location for the destination, you change the names, the extension if you want. You've got some preferences. We're going to walk through that later on. You click Convert, and it will convert all your images. That's as simple as that, really. If you don't want to use this, and I personally do not use that software, if you're a big user of Lightroom like I am, or Photoshop with Camera Raw, those softwares will enable you to convert your native RAW file directly into DNG. And for Lightroom, you can do this during the import process, and I'm going to walk you through this right now. So we are in Lightroom, and if you want to import your file, you go in the library module and you click import. So far, normal. If you're not a DNG user until now, your option at the top was probably copy, which consists of copying the information from your memory card onto the destination folder of your choice. Well, if you want to use DNG, you select the first option here at the top, copy as DNG, and you see it's written on the tin really. Convert to DNG in a new location of your choice and add that file to the catalog. So I'm not going to do it here, but what it does, it will add this image to wherever you want it to. If you don't do the conversion during the import, you can still do it afterwards, and you have your file here, and all you need to do is go library and convert photo to DNG. When you do this, you end up having some options here. So the options at the top, you only see them when you do this conversion this way. But the option here in the DNG creation, you can also find that in the library preference. So when you open the library preference, in the file handling, you have exactly the same options right here, which are the extension is still going to be DNG, but it's whether or not you want it capitalized. The compatibility, so with Camera Raw, so always choose the most recent version. And also one thing that is very specific, to DNG is that you can choose the size of the JPEG preview that's embedded inside the DNG. See the DNG as a wrapper, a file with a structure in it, and you have the image information, you're going to have the metadata, and you're also going to have the preview, and that's what it is. So it's pretty good because you can choose full size if you want, or medium or none. Bear in mind, if you choose none, you're never going to be able to see that little preview icon that you see if your operating system shows that. Personally, I go for medium. That's fair enough for me. The most important option is really the next one, embed fast load data. That is extremely specific to DNG. It was introduced with Lightroom 4, and what it does, it will speed up your process inside Lightroom only when you're in the develop module. So let's say you are in a develop module and you make changes to an image, and then you switch to the next image, you make changes and so on, you move to the next image and so on, and you want to go back to an image that you edited just before. So you go back and you select that image. What's going to happen is, because you're in a develop module will actually read all the develop settings that you have and will generate a preview. Sometimes it can take quite some time. It will also read from the cache, which is from Camera Raw, the engine behind Lightroom. It will read that cache to generate that preview. Well, if you actually tick that option of embedding fast load data, what it does is that all the changes that you make in the develop module not only are stored inside the DNG file, but it will also build a preview inside that DNG file. It doesn't take much space. It's about 200 kilobytes, that's it. But it will speed up your preview. I was going to say pre-visualization, which is a big word, but it will your preview will be faster. Will load about up to 8 times faster than if you didn't have this option. The option that you see here use lossy compression, and that is because by natively your DNG file has the image information compressed losslessly, meaning that it's compressed but you don't lose any information at all. But if you really don't care, you can choose lossy compression that will actually make the file even smaller. And finally, the other option is embed original raw file. So as I said, DNG is like a structured wrapper, and you can embed your native raw file into it, but it will make the file bigger, obviously. So I'm just closing this one, and I'm going to convert that CR2 file. So let me just go back to this menu, library, and convert to DNG. So far so good. I converted, and you'll see what happens. It converted the file into DNG, and you no longer see the CR2 file here, but it did not delete it. In fact, if I actually go into the folder itself on the computer, you can see that I have my DNG file, but I still have the CR2. What Lightroom did was adding the DNG file in the catalog and removing the CR2 file from the catalog, but the CR2 file is still there. One thing as well that is worth knowing, and it could be a good practice, that when you import or whenever you do the conversion to DNG, you may want to go to the folder where your DNG files are inside Lightroom, and in that case it's here, DNG, and you go to Library and do Validate DNG file. And then it basically check the data inside the DNG and make sure that it's not corrupted. Personally, I've never heard of any story around DNG being corrupted, but you never know. And that's a good way of checking it, especially if you do this during the import. If you do the conversion during the import, before you actually delete your native RAW file from your SD card or CF card, maybe it's a good thing to just validate the DNG just to make sure that it's actually not corrupted and it's in good shape. So now let's look at the pros and the cons. So the first one I am going to mention is the file size. Look at the CR2 file, the initial one, roughly 27 megabytes. Now if I actually look at the DNG file, it's 23 megabytes. So we actually saved 4 megabytes by doing the conversion. And as I said, it's a lossless conversion. Basically, it's the equivalent of a zip. So that's why we save some space. You may think that 4 megabytes is not much, and nowadays the hard drives are cheaper and cheaper by the day. That is true. However, if like me, you have hundreds of thousands of images stored on your hard drive, that represent a big chunk of data and therefore a lot of space to have. And so if I can save 4 megabytes per RAW file, that's going to be quite good. Usually you can count up to 20% in space saved by using DNG format. Another pro as well is, you'll see underneath we see the XMP file. If you don't know what an XMP file is, I invite you to actually click on the link to this video that is showing up on your screen right now. This is a video that I've done in May 2013 explaining everything that there is to know about the XMP file. The good news, when you use DNG, you no longer need XMP. So all the information is stored inside the DNG. And that is great for many reasons. First off, about backupping. Storing your data, making sure that you don't lose anything. Until now, with your native RAW file, you had to make sure that you had the native RAW file, so the CR2, and you had the XMP file. If you didn't have the XMP file, if you lost it, all your development would be lost, unless obviously you converted your file into a TIFF or JPEG or whatever other format you wanted. But by default, you will need those two files. Now, if you use DNG, you only have to care about one file. The information is stored in it. The good news about this as well is that if you want to share your file with somebody else, you can share your file and that person will be able to actually see your development. Even though that person might not have the same program as yours, it will be able to open that DNG file and see the changes. So that's another pro for DNG. Another good thing is about metadata. I told you the DNG is a wrapper and it's got a lot of, it's almost like subfolders. And when it comes to metadata, it's limitless. So you basically can add as much metadata as you want in it. So much, in fact, that you could actually add the keywords that you use in Lightroom, for example, would be written inside your DNG file. And if you do a search on your computer using your search tool, and you type, for example, portrait, it will actually find all the photographs that you have that have this keyword written inside a DNG file. And that's a great asset. And you can add tons of metadata sorry, inside the DNG file. If you wanted to write a novel in it, you could add as much text as you want. Another pro, and we mentioned it earlier, is about the fact that you can embed your native RAW file inside DNG. So even if you really want to use DNG for all the good reasons that I'm actually listing now, but you still want to keep your native RAW file, you could still embed your RAW file into it. So that's a pro. Another pro as well, we mentioned it also, was about speeding up your process inside Lightroom, at least when it comes to preview with the embed load data. That is specific to DNG, so that's a good pro. Another good pro is that if you use Creative Cloud, if you are a big user of Adobe product, well, DNG is used across all creative products. So if you use Premiere, Illustrator, and so on, you could use DNG. There's absolutely no problem at all. The other pros are around the format itself, the fact that its specifications are publicly available, that it's open to everyone, royalty free, and that makes it more reliable in the time than the native RAW format. Why? Well, let's imagine first off, you have a new camera model, you have a new RAW file, you want to open it in Lightroom, but chances are that Lightroom doesn't have an update yet for that RAW format, for that RAW file. So you might not even be able to actually read that file. So that means that the workflow that you normally rely on, you won't be. So that's going to be a problem. You can always go to your manufacturer tool. With that one, there wouldn't be a problem. But if you use third-party software like I do, and like most of you do, then that's not going to work. So that's the good thing about DNG. It will always work. You can always convert your file and into DNG, and then in Lightroom you can use it, even if that is that new native file. So you have that new native file, and you convert it using Adobe Converter for DNG Converter, or using Lightroom. It will convert it, and you can still work on the DNG. Another good thing as well is in the future, when you think of it, we don't know what the future holds, and maybe Canon, Nikon, whatever, one day will no longer support the RAW format, and in that case, well, you're stuck with this old format. Whereas if you use DNG, then because it's open, anybody can create a software and read it. It's like the JPEG when you think of it. You can still open JPEG that were created in the 1990s, but chances are that if you have one of the earliest RAW file, chances are that you won't be able to open it in Lightroom. Because over time, having to be able to work with all those specific proprietary RAW files takes a lot of space in each software after updates and updates and updates. So sometimes you've got software companies that's going to try to do some spring cleaning and stop supporting the very ancient format. Whereas if you use DNG, standard, universal, that you won't have that problem. Another thing as well with regard to updating your third-party software to be compatible with this new RAW file is that sometimes softwares will not be updated. What they do is they will upgrade directly, meaning that you will need to buy the upgrade for the software. It's like Photoshop. In the old days, for example, you had CS3 and you have a new camera model and you had a new file, and that new file was not compatible with CS3. So you needed to get CS4 to get it to work. But then that meant that you need to actually buy the upgrade. So there is a cost associated to it. So having DNG prevents this. So that's a good pro. And that's basically all the pros that I could actually think of. There's a whole list on my blog. So I'm keeping an eye on my blog at the same time as I'm explaining this to you. Cons. There are a few cons. The first one is that its DNG is not recognized by your camera manufacturer editing software. So if you're a big user of DPP, if you're a Canon user, or Capture NX for Nikon, DNG it won't be for you. If you use Lightroom, Photoshop, DxO, Aperture, Google application, and the others, there won't be any problem. DNG will work, but if you're using the manufacturer's one, it won't work. So it's not for you. It will lose some of the camera metadata, and this has nothing to do with file size that we talked earlier. This has to do with some of the metadata that is specific to the camera, stored in a native RAW format that is not being recognized by any third-party softwares. And we talked about this in previous episodes when we talked about the camera profile, the picture style, and this kind of thing. If you shoot monochrome and you end up in Lightroom, you will never see your picture being in monochrome. You will see it in color. That information is not being recognized, as well as the focus point that you selected when you took the shot. That is not supported, not recognized by third-party software. You can use that information in DPP, Capture, NX, and the manufacturer's softwares, but not in third-party software. So that information is not stored in the DNG. So if you are really keen on keeping that information, you cannot use DNG, or you will need to actually embed your raw file inside the DNG. But that's a con, and it's worth mentioning. Extra time consuming. Yes, if you import and have to convert, obviously it's going to take a little bit more time. That's simply just importing your native raw file inside your favorite program. So yes, it's time consuming. But if you're like me, when you import your images, you're not just sitting there and just waiting for it to complete, right? So that doesn't really bother me, but that's just me. If it does for you, then DNG might not be a good thing. The final one is about bigger file. So we saw that the DNG as a Pro was actually smaller than native raw file, but if you actually decide to keep the raw file and you embed it in it, then obviously your DNG is going to be even bigger than your native raw file. So that might be a con. Another thing as well that is a con, I just thought of it, is that you do have, and I've heard of that, photography contests which require you to upload your native raw file. Excuse me. They won't accept DNG, for example, and so in that case, yeah, you will need your native raw file. Personally, I'm not big in contest, and if they require my raw, I'm not going to send that to them anyway. The raw is for me. But if you're big in contest, then DNG might not be for you. So those are the cons. So we saw the pros, we saw the cons. Personally, I've used DNG. You may be thinking, oh Tom, you're an Adobean, so obviously you've been using DNG from since day one. Well, it's not true. In fact, I started using DNG only since last December. The reason is I had a discussion with a fellow, with a colleague of mine working as an evangelist for creative products at Adobe, and it just convinced me, and I just decided to actually go for DNG. What really convinced me was not having to deal with XMP files anymore, so no sidecard. The file size, yeah, that was a great asset as well. The idea that I could share my DNG and have all the details in it, all the development setting, and whoever I share it to can see those changes. That's just great. The whole feature aspect of it, yes, it's nice. I like the fact that it's a standard, universal. I like this idea a lot, and the fact that it's fully compatible with all Adobe products and a lot more products as well, like DxO and so on. That's great. As you know, I'm not a big user of the manufacturer's editing software. I think they're goofy. I think they're quite rubbish, so I don't use them. I don't have a problem not using the native raw file, as well as the metadata that is being lost. I don't really care. I don't care about which focus point was selected when I took the shot. I don't care about some of the details like picture style and so on that is being stored in there. It doesn't do anything to me. So and because my workflow really relies on Lightroom and Photoshop, then really DNG makes a lot of sense to me, but it might not be the case for you. So let me know in the comment. I hope you found this informative. It was quite a long video. Tell me if you've been using DNG and if you stopped or not. If you haven't been using DNG, has this video provided you with more insight? Will you be using DNG or not? Just give me all the details in the comment. I love reading all those. Don't forget, you find all the details, the pros, the cons, everything listed, and some of the details that I may have forgotten in this video, you can find directly in the article on my website, tommygoodphotography.com. The link of the blog article is in the description as usual. And until next time, this is Tommy Good saying, if you like it, well, capture it, and don't forget, shoot in RAW. Ciao.